Hi, welcome to Interpreting Error Budget Signals. My name is Kayla Annunziata. I'm a software engineering senior manager with Capital One, and I'm actually relatively new to the SRE domain. I come from a wealth of experience in the aerospace industry, actually developing software to get humans back to the surface of the moon with the Orion spacecraft. There's, believe it or not, a lot of similarities between software that is aimed towards human space exploration, software in the finance industry, as well as any other software that you're developing or that your teams maintain. And I'm here today to talk to you about our journey with SLOs, how we're utilizing error budget signals to improve the reliability of our applications at Capital One. So step one is start somewhere, create an SLO for your application. If it's simpler to just create an availability SLI, for example, this off of a response code of 500s or non-500s, and start there, right? If it's maybe simpler for your application to track the performance of your latency, create an SLI off of that. Just bootstrap your team in some way that makes the most sense for you. Next step is figure out how to read it. So look at some of the known events that have happened around your SLI for that period of time. So let's say just this last week, right? Your team maybe had responded to an incident. You could look at how your SLI performed over the period that that incident was occurring, before, during the incident, and after. And lastly is learn how to use your error budget signal to action off of your reliability over time. So interpret it. See how you can read into the reliability of your applications, but also how you may be able to address them outside of just being so incident focused as a team. So this is just a graph of a 395 SLO of error budget remaining over time. The first thing to look at here for step two is, again, correlate things that are going on around you. Example, you had an incident last week. The first thing that we look at as data as humans is the outliers, right? What are the things that really jump out at us as the big differences? So you can see here the two fast burns that are correlated to those incidents that occurred. To take it a step further than just looking at some of those more outlier pieces of data, step three, dig into the interpretation of your error budget signal. Maybe look at some of the more nuanced behavior on it. So outside of just your error budget remaining over time, this includes not only your incident overlays, but some of the changes that you introduce to your production environment. So whether that could be a code change, an infrastructure change, whatever it may be, you can look at how a change introduced in this specific example actually drove a slow burn of your error budget remaining over time. Even though there was a slow burn that's maybe a little bit easier to indicate here, there was a recovery in the middle of it. Was that recovery driven by a code change or something else? And then lastly, you can still correlate those changes potentially to a primary contributor as that drove the incident that occurred. Lastly here is just to do a comparison. So looking at the exact same SLO over two different periods of time, overlaying it onto a single graph. You can see here those two incidents that we have been looking at in the prior two slides, overlaid with a slow burn that occurred over a significant amount of time, but didn't have any incidents correlated to it. Now, those slow burns can have just as much of an impact on the reliability of your application and your customers as a result, if not more. And in this case, it was more significant than either of the two incidents that were addressed. So looking at error budget in a more nuanced way, whether it could be slow burn or other key indicators here, can potentially have significant impacts on your customers and on the reliability of your application. So step five is profit. So look around you, right? What are some things that you may be able to correlate to your SLI behavior? So I gave some examples here of changes, of incidents. What might be applicable for your team? There might be something else that you can start to correlate your error budget to. Next is look deeper at your error budget remaining. So don't focus solely on those outliers. Don't be incident driven as a team. look instead at the reliability of your application over that full period of time. And in a more nuanced way, right? Look at some of the more subtle ways that the error budget is responding. And lastly is get buy-in from your team and from your leadership on the value of error budgets. If you have a strong error budget policy that your team can respond with, you can have more resultant impact on your application as opposed to just being an incident-driven organization. And that's it. So thank you for your time. I'll be around in the Slack channel to answer any questions that you might have. And thanks again for tuning in.